Welcome everybody to a new episode of New Waylie, where we start working on the 4th level of our apartment complex. In fact, I think we're actually going to finish it in this episode. Some footage is missing, but I do have a live look over the missing stuff, so that will be at the end. To start off though, I want to show real quick the tunnel that I had already made that goes from the lower level we're building from to the train station. However, we're going to have a dedicated transport line for the apartment complex, and for that I'm going to use this bus tube right here. This is the bus tube by Whisperwalk, and I'm just testing out here, showing what it looks like. It uses these barrier props for the sides, which of course means the slopes or curves aren't handled too well. Well, curves are okay, but not the slopes. But I use that to my advantage because I wanted something kind of broken and kind of interesting. It's going to break anyway once I add an intersection, which will be for the entrance to the complex. But it's just something fun to work with. I really like how it looks. So after setting up the bus line and the tunnel is exactly where I wanted to go, it's time to get the actual entrance working, the entrance to this apartment complex, which I figured would be best as kind of a park or plaza area. At this point, I'm not sure if I really thought about that yet, because I'm making these straight roads, and pretty soon I realized I don't really want that, because the straight roads made sense for where the apartments were, but not for a plaza or a park, of course. Now, first I had to decide exactly what path I'm going to be using, though. The ones we see right here are the network extensions. Zonable paths is what they're called. So they kind of work like roads. They connect to roads, as you just saw right now, connected to the bus tube. However, they are meant to look like and be used as pedestrian paths. My choice was not just going to come from aesthetics, though. It would have to be something that fit well in the area, that could connect to those roads well. So I found this flex path, which I think I've used before already. I hadn't realized it before. As you can see right in here, I'm trying to connect with a regular pedestrian path and it doesn't work. At this time, I hadn't realized that these network extension zonable paths work like roads, so I was unsure why they weren't connecting to things. That is something to remember, though. If you're one who's using a lot of the other paths from the vanilla game or the workshop, they're not going to connect to these. However, this flex path is based on the network extensions ones, apparently. Or it's the same general idea, but it's completely I was gonna say untextured, but it doesn't have other props on it. It's completely bare, but it does have some thickness to it. So I figured this was the perfect thing to use here, because I can always add the details later, or at least the details I want. For the most part, I really did want just a plain path. I just want the ground. I just want the tiling. Now here we are doing what I said at first, that we're not going to have these straight lines. This is a park, this is a plaza. We got to make this more interesting, much more fun, much more scenic, right? Something more beautiful to walk along. So I'm weaving this around some of the trees I already have, and also just kind of making up my own random ideas of where the curves are. And end it right where the pedestrian elevator is, because I'm already thinking that on top of the pedestrian elevator we might have some sort of power relay station or power generator, something like that. So having the path end there would look really great, because it's like this outlook point, just an observation area to stare at that power relay. Now here we're taking a little break from the 4th level stuff, because I found that there's definitely more we can do down here. The 4th level is going to be the entrance from the bus tube, but I also wanted a more fancy sort of entrance within the complex itself, kind of like a main level to the complex. Also the main area where there might be something else inside the rocks, like maybe you would have the management office or other kind of utilities and services. They would be inside that part of the cliff. So we want to make that entrance to be a little more special. So not just adding the entrance there, but add the stairs, and we're going to add a little bit more detail to that after I'm done with this area first. Now this is kind of interesting, because I thought I already done this before, but it may be just because I get a little bit confused between the couple levels. Put your ploppable surfaces and put the plants in. Pretty easy. As always, it's more about just you coming up with your design, what you want in here. These clusters or bushes are great fillers, though, because I figured that you know, we plant those red tip bushes and these green bushes right here. Those are the ones that we specifically plant in here and want to grow in the area, but we might allow some wild growth as well, and that's more in the center. The little tree I put in the center of that area was the ornamental pear, I believe. There's I think 3 of them, probably a small asset pack. They're not the highest quality, so not the best if you look at them too closely, but they are pretty nice and nice design. They were recently added to the workshop at the time of filming this. Now I'm back to where I really wanted to work on. As you saw, I used procedural objects to change the model of that entrance a little bit more, just so that it better follows the curve of the rock face that we're dealing with here and the stairs as well. I put a few bushes down, but I wanted to give it planters as well, right? Again, part of making this a little bit more fancy. Well, I guess we needed planters anyway because it's all concrete, it's all stairs and floor and all that. I did consider walling up the rock as well, but I still want to have some sense of the natural area here, the natural earth. So just having it built straight into the rock like that I thought was fine. We'll just make the outside more fancy with these lights. I really like just why I came up there. Just very simple row of lights. It just makes a big difference to how that place looks like. Now, I realized that this house didn't have a planter or garden in front, so we started building that. And for the most part, I finished detailing this area. But to be honest, it's very hard to consider a place completely done because as the whole area gets built more, you start realizing little areas that could use a little bit more work just to better blend with the design of the rest of the complex, or just little things that you didn't think of before. So in my case, not all the ideas came to me at once, right? So it's only after staring at this whole thing for a long time I start thinking, that place could have used a tree here, or a bush there, or a garden there. Now we start building the surface of the park here, but this is all we're going to do for now. We're going to take a little break very soon to start working on just making some of this functional, but the main thing here was just to get the surface down, right? So I'd also be sure what the boundaries of the park are going to be, as we can see right here, and just that's where I was going to end the stream for that day. But before I went up even more, as I said before, there are little things that need to be done, and one big thing was actually just making this whole area functional. So we're using these blank buildings by Acros. There are other options now. There's I think it's called it's a Block Rico or something like that. You can find it very easy in the workshop. They're just these cube versions of your growables. That way you can put them anywhere you want. They're not meant to distort terrain. There's some that still do. It's a little bit of a problem, or maybe just needs more updates. But technically it's for this, right? So that you can, quote unquote, make your procedural objects functional. So the only issue though is because they are normal growable buildings, they do need road access. So a lot of this I actually did without thinking, and later realized that they weren't going to work. Like, people are not moving in because they don't have any road access. I don't have it on screen here because it's a crazy mess that I ended up undoing, but I tried to put down a bunch of invisible roads to give those things road access, and it helped, but then that means I could only put those buildings wherever the roads were, and because of how other networks might be overlapping or their curves, I wouldn't get a lot of zonable area anyway. So it was very difficult, and I could only end up putting down like 4 blocks or something. Hopefully I'll show it later. Just use move it. You first you plop in the zonable area, and then you just move it to where it needs to be, and just kind of hope it's near enough to a road. Yeah. I don't really have a precise science about this. I'm sorry. Hopefully I'll figure this out in time, because I feel like I'll definitely have to. Now, a lot of the stuff we just saw I thought were pretty simple, pretty self-explanatory. This part, though, I think I can talk a little bit more, because it's kind of the same idea of making things functional. In this case, it's actually getting real streets in here, real roads, to make sure that service vehicles have access. Of course, if I'm using real roads, most of these do have pedestrian paths anyway, so I gave myself a huge headache having these overlapping invisible and real roads, and it turns out that I just needed the regular road. I'm using right now this Japanese road, and it turned out to be really cool down here because it has these it has kind of like a very low sort of curve, but it's just kind of like the same road is all for pedestrians or cars, and they're just divided by this like low curve. But the cool thing, as you saw on the bottom there, is that it gets painted by the decal. So I thought it looked really awesome to have this very subtle curve down there, because it more clearly shows that even though it's meant to be a pedestrian. Seriously, what's the outdoors version of a lobby? I'm trying to. I guess I I, I need this word and I've lost it. Anyway, but it shows that's not just this random pedestrian area, but that something can drive around there, and that something will be little shuttle buses. Little hover buses. They'll be going down there, which is why the road I'm putting right now on top of the buildings just ends right there at the end, because that's where the buses are going to fly off and head down or up. A real tricky point though is that a lot of these Japanese roads are very glitchy. Not to say that this is necessarily a fault of only this asset creator or something. It's just that a lot of these narrow roads in particular, especially that's a ground-based road, and that's partly why the glitching is there. I have to put a lot of work at trying to find out what kind of angles work, how to curve the road. As you see, I was talking about other things and we're still doing that on screen here. So this is one of the first times I show this, so I will show almost the whole thing, almost the whole process, because it is tedious. Right here in this corner in particular, I almost gave up. Like, I wanted to tear my hair out. I just wanted to delete everything and just say, all right, we can't make this functional. Like, look at this, we're getting pavement like leaking through the top there. Finally got something semi-decent. We got it to work, and now we have a way for cars to actually, or what's going to be buses, buses ride on this, overlapping the flex path, because that's going to be the main look though. That's the pedestrian path people are going to be using. And then once I got all that lined up in all dimensions the way I wanted them, it was time to deal with the end right here, because this flex path does have thickness, so the ending doesn't look too bad, but the road below it is a bit weirder. It has that weird cut look, and it has a cut look right now because I've already connected the invisible path. Like, you can see down there it says Howard Street, and so this is where I came up with one of my other sort of design elements. I don't know what to call it. Kind of like it's gonna be something we're gonna be using a lot. It's a curb prop, and I am I converted it to a procedural object, editing its shape so that it completely covers this end right here. However, I don't just want to like plop it there kind of randomly. I want to make it as organic as possible, like really make this transition as smooth as possible. And so again, I spent a really long time on this to try to get this right. It has to cover up the glitchiness as well as just the cut part of the road here, but I also wanted to just really ease down into the surface of the road near maybe the barrier. Again, just something that makes sense design wise as well as functionally, right? So that was definitely a bit tricky, but we finally got it. Then we go to the other end. It is something that took me a while, because mainly I was just trying to get the grass to perfectly follow the curb. So I'm actually trying to cover up the pedestrian side of that little road. It is curved, it's a very small area, so that took a little bit of time, but not that big of a deal. Now, since in the last episode we didn't see the decals I put here in front of the houses, I'm gonna show one right now, because this last one didn't have a front yard basically. So it's kind of weird to see the stairs just go straight into the grass like that. So we're going to give this a little bit of, I guess you can call this cobblestone, I'm not too sure, but it's one of the decals I have in here. Then after that comes what I was explaining before about the blank buildings. So this is the only way I could figure out how to do it. So we're guessing, looks like I'm using the Japanese roads I had already put down. After all, I pulled it out of the complex out here, found how many zones I can use so I can put down the blocks, and then just drag it all in. There you go. And that worked perfectly, I believe. All functional with people moving in, and so since they're stable and working, I've named them, and they can be named by my followers as well. So if you come onto the stream and you follow, come back maybe once or twice, then you can get a house for yourself. One of the perks of seeing this live. Of course, we'd get you a non-burned house though. Yeah, this is the part of the stream where I realized that I didn't have the no fires mod or fire control mod, something like that. So yeah, there I was just like doing my thing, and you saw it just flared up all at once. It was running at max speed, right? So that you didn't even see it slowly spread. It just whoosh, the whole thing lit up like flash paper. Now I did check my saves the moment the fire flared up, so I really don't remember if I did have a recent save and I just chose to play it out and see what it would take to get the fire taken care of. I think I did have the save luckily, and yeah, it was just a little bit of of fun just trying to get that all cleaned up during the stream. Might as well, right? We're on stream. Let's just have fun with it. Just something unexpected, something a little different from the normal detailing. So now if you see here, all of a sudden we've apparently skipped ahead in time quite a lot compared to what we're just seeing. And I said this in the previous video that this is the other time where apparently I forgot to download the stream videos. However, we're gonna go through this. So I've loaded my old game save so that even though I don't have the footage of my building this, at least I can go over this. And I figured it was better to do it in-game instead of, you know, through pictures. So I think we're gonna start over here and work our way out. But I think the last thing we had was this, right? Yeah, we finished this over here. So the next step from that was to start filling up this area. In the previous clips, I'm pretty sure we only had a straight line here. But I decided on doing a park on this side, and this one will be more of a plaza. The idea was that I just wanted to have some sports. I was looking for like tennis courts, basketball courts, whatever I could find. And I found this one. So this is a decal actually. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. Let's start over here. All right, so the first thing was, if it wasn't done previously, was to add this row of bushes over here. That's it, wildflower bush. That's all it's called, wildflower bush. By Pedelmo, of course. So put those here. I thought about having something special for the entrance, but not too special either. Don't want to distract too much. We don't want to make this too fancy. It's just a entrance to the whole area and leads to a plaza park kind of thing. So we don't want anything too crazy here. So I made my own little sculpture. I might have taken curb pieces. That looks like what they are, concrete curbs. Yeah, I just made one pillar here, one pillar here, one pillar here. I did put some thought into this as a work of art. For example, let's see, what's the main thing I did? Here we go. This one looks like the top piece is on top of that, but here's the other way. Here, like the bottom piece is on top of the crossing piece. They're just barely touching sideways like that, right over this funky break over here. So anyway, just a very simple little work of art. And I put a light under it so that we get some illumination to show it off at night. So there we go. And line this whole area with some short bushes. Now this I worked on later, but since we're here, I'll do this now. Again, we had terrain down here. We had the cliffside. So I wanted this covered up. So it's fairly simple. It looks kind of crazy with the wall shapes, but it's really just because I'm following the terrain again. It kind of shows that we're doing minimal effort. No, not minimal effort. Minimum covering of terrain, I guess. But also allows us to have, you know, more interesting shapes here. Like I wouldn't have come up with this funky design if I wasn't following the terrain, right? I might have done something just simple like bloom, 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 like a few curves or whatever. That's boring. This is a lot more interesting. I believe these are prop walls, and I made them bigger, I think, stretched them out. This is a pretty big Sejong wall thing, or Korea wall or something. It's very, very long, but I can only compress it so much because the pattern, I think you can tell that the pattern is not really the highest quality, but it doesn't really change. It doesn't look any better even when you shrink it down. Like it would take a lot of shrinking down to make that look good. So, oh well, we just have to leave it there. Well, following the steps up until here, put some tall grass, some bushes, another bush here, and just kind of make it look like just slowly stepping up. I guess that's not very slow, but stepping up all the way up to this level right here. Now, speaking of this level, since we're talking about walls and stuff, again, I'm walling up the terrain here, but also to give us more of a sense that there's definitely a building in here, right? There's something in here. So I didn't want to have just a simple entrance or exit as I did, I guess on this side here. Yeah, like this one is just the entrance pretty much, just built right into the rock. But here I wanted to have it fully walled up on the sides. There's a lobby inside here, right? There might be shops or restaurants in there or something. Again, ploppable grass, add some bushes. And I added this row to tomato plants. I guess we'll get to the first interesting futuristic thing here, right here. We have a bunch of tomato plants, which I'm surprised actually look pretty decent. I didn't think so at first, but they're actually better than I thought. These are props, so that also means that they can be modified as a procedural object. So I figured that this area has kind of like this tomato garden. And this robot right here, this is our tomato planting robot. Actually, both tomato planting and harvesting. Now, this robot is actually from the Quad Riders, or their futuristic set. It's one of their military assets, so it's supposed to be some sort of, war robot, I guess. Not really a robot. You pilot it, so it's a mech. It's actually fairly big. It's probably at least twice as big. But I shrunk it down, brought it back to a more friendly, comfortable size, and Took a long time, but I turned the tomato plant and did my best to align it so that it looks like it's being held, because it does have like a fist there or something. So I think I did a pretty good job. I think it's right where it needs to be. Ready to go plant it or whatever. Pretty sure these are meant to be laser weapons or whatever. We're calling these just ketchup guns, alright? So if you're ever here somewhere enjoying your hot dog, you can just call over the bot and it'll squirt ketchup into your hot dog with amazing millimeter accuracy. So no need to fear the robot. Little toddlers have been heard to say, "Ketchup Bot tall, Ketchup Bot tall." Yeah, stupid pun, you get it? Ketchup bottle. Anyway, so I think the next thing I did was put down this basketball court. Now this is actually a decal, so the base of it is just poppable surfaces, more grass or whatever I chose. In retrospect, I don't think I needed to, because one big problem here is that there is no actual surface or foundation, which means that, yeah, we can see through the bottom. So later I add this, and I do have a course video on this, but I think the thing I put after might support the decals. I'm not too sure. It's actually something I'll check for the latest levels in my city in this complex. This decal, I think this is a Venetian tile set or something. So there it is, Venetian tile. Took a little bit of effort to get this perfectly lined up, to get them all lined up. Not to mention kind of centered. And then these might be the Clara benches, and I just turn them into procedural objects and color them differently, so they're kind of like just benches for watching this. And luckily there are props for the basket, so we put those down. I wanted also some kind of sculpture over here in this little area, because similar to the park over here, which I did have the clip for, because this is a more leisurely area, I wanted to not have a straight line, so I made some really funky curves here. Just pretty random. I even let myself kind of go past our quote-unquote limit that I considered over here. I made this big curve out here. So yeah, because of the irregular shape, we have this little area, and I found this yes and no sculpture, which is perfect. It just almost, yeah, it just really fits there nicely. Then I thought about some sort of locker. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of this like a locker, like something for the, it could be uniforms, it could be the ball. And so I put together, I think this is some kind of locker outdoor cabinet. I stretched it out. I think I took piece of an ATM machine or something. Minimum $10 change, I guess. Yeah, that took a lot of work, because you have to line this up perfectly so that only the screen is peeking through and not the rest of the machine in here. But got it colored a bit of gold, light gold kind of look. I like it. I like how that looks. Now, having finished this area right here, I realized that the squares I had from these tiles were a great opportunity to place things in there, right? So make the design demonstrative of its function. So it was a perfect place to put this pergolas with some benches. This is from some sort of Russian park set. I really like them. They work great here. Want something a little bit more colorful. And these urns or whatever, stone urn. I think the pergolas are props, but this one I had to make into procedural objects so that we could, yeah, make that fit its area. This sidewalk, this was really tough as well, because are these procedural objects? Yes, they are. So it's only like 3 tiles each, so that was a bit tedious to get them all lined up. It actually took quite a while, especially to get this intersection looking right. But the real piece of work was this right here. It's these set of triangles. I forgot what they call them. These right here. Triangle, grass, triangle. I forgot what they're called exactly. Overlapped maybe 3 or 4 of them. There's one. This might be one other one, the black one. There's the other concrete one. There's a small one right here. Place the benches myself. Oh, that's clipping uglily. I did not notice that. More tomato plants, the theme again of this area, for a little ketchup robot to take care of. Oh, this is a nice view. Woo! We actually went in there. Whee! Oh, that bench is actually pretty nice, isn't it? That's some decent detail on the wood. The wood grain. This took a little bit again just to try to find something that kind of looks nice. Not sure if I really pulled it off, but I think it came out okay. Because it's a very irregular shape, so it's an irregular distribution of benches and flowers and urns and all that. So after we finished this area, it was time for just the final touches, final details. So put some garbage cans, the urns all around, and I did have this idea that I wanted like these temporary tents to really show that this is a place where, you know, kind of like a community area and fairly open for people to have their own events and stuff. This has some boxes to make it look like they got some things in storage ready to bring out for whatever their event is. And I found this pizza vending machine, which is awesome. I want some vending machines, but it's really hard because they're obviously very dated. You can tell that they're from, you know, they're contemporary things, but I think a pizza machine is not very normal, right? So I don't think this exists right now in real life. And if it does, it must be very rare. So I think it works great for our futuristic theme here. So pizza vending machine, why not? Got some more tomato plants here, bushes, no big deal. The real big thing I want to cover though is this curb. This curve that I put all around. I decided that this was necessary for almost any level where you're gonna have, I should say this, where the surface is just the ploppable surface. And even if I do use the sort of foundation that I use later, the curve really adds a nice touch. So originally I was thinking that we don't really need curbs. Again, with the kind of technology we have here, there's no need to have dirt be bounded by some sort of curb or wall. But it just looks better. It just looks really nice to have a curve all around. So let me show what this is. Here, bridge border. So it's a network. Here's what the profile is like. So that's why I'm using like a curve, because it does have a bottom to it. So any ploppable surface I put can definitely go on that. And then this is the actual bounding area. And the overall thickness of this gives us some room to play with and allows the concrete foundations I put down to cover curves pretty decent. If I have a curve like this, I could still potentially have a straight line foundation piece over here, because I have some thickness, so I can bring it in all the way to this edge and bring the other one all the way to here, so that the line happens to stay within the confines of the curve like that. I don't think you can change the direction by using the right click tool, so you have to draw it the right way. So that's what I drew here all around. But this one I really like. Could have just had one come over here and then separately draw this one and then move it in without having them actually join. I decided that joining would actually work because it would be a cool place to have this distortion. You could put something there. That was really hard though, because to get the distortion though, that means you have to draw bend of the curve in a really funky way. See, that curve is actually going, that's it, I'm pretty sure. It's going all the way over here. See, it's actually drawn all the way over here. But I changed the height so that stays under the road, and it's really distorted. See, it's actually curved out like that. This one's drawn all the way over here. So they're actually joined up here, all the way up here. So these are one of those little tricks, one of those weird, funky little things that you have to do sometimes to get the shapes you want. Because of how the distortion works, right? The road doesn't even get drawn all the way up there, I think. And then this is probably some prop that I just stretched out. I do want this to be for pedestrians for the most part, but it could still have little buses, little shuttles, especially the outer part of it. I guess this makes the most sense. It could be like a shared road, but here there's no reason. It's a flying car, right? So they're flying buses and all that, so they should just go through. I didn't want it to look too random and weird to just have it float over. I'm gonna have designs more for proper air roads and higher levels. Here, we still mostly do have roads, physical roads for our vehicles. So might as well continue that element of design and put something here. Even though it's not really necessary, it's just to show people that, don't worry, like you won't have vehicles here. Like this road comes in way too far to have vehicles. So the vehicles will stay at the outer boundaries of the plaza. After that, I started working on this. This does become our walking path up to the 5th level. But the idea at this point was really just to bring some of the greenery of the park to this side. This is the surface network, which I then combine with the ploppable surfaces up here, so that we have our little landing area. And again, being the future, we don't have mud issues really, so a lot of grass walkways are going to be totally fine here. And to finish off this area, we're just slightly reshaping and scaling down these stairs to fit into the space that we made out for it. It's just going to be a little platform for like a little sculpture or something, which we'll be adding later. Another pergola, benches, table, very simple. And I made this tiny little rest area or whatever it is. Found this art wall on the workshop. Distorted it a little bit, maybe just the thickness. It also covers up some glitching we have here with the road. As always, these things take a little bit of work just to make things look good. Alright, and I think that does it. That's all of that we had to cover. The only random other thing I added here as a reminder to myself was this tiny pavement path, right? Half a unit by Whisper Walk. And I love it because it's very, very narrow, and I definitely need, you know, all the stuff I've been building here. I need narrow stuff. I need tiny things. And it's going to make like a little elevator roundabout just floating over the middle of the whole complex. Continue on and connect to the other side. A way to link the plaza with the park. But that is that for the 4th level of our complex. So thank you very much for watching, and do come by the stream because these videos are really behind. You'd be surprised just how much we've already built on this stream. So come by and say hi in the chat, like and subscribe here on YouTube. But first, wherever you may be, good morning, good afternoon, and good